Today on Homeworthy, we're touring interior designer Jaime Zehner's quaint and layered Cottage by the Sea in Laguna Beach, California. With an affinity for Nancy Meyers' aesthetic, Jaime designed her home to mimic that cozy and inviting feel we're all so familiar with. Her expansive garden lined with orange trees, a bed of herbs, and blooming flowers is just one of the many features that contributes to the tranquil and idyllic feel. Enjoy! You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Before today's episode, click the join button below to support all of the storytelling we do on this channel. Our growing community of members help to directly fund more videos so we can capture these extraordinary homes from around the world. So join today to receive early and exclusive access to new Homeworthy videos.
Hey Homeworthy, my name is Jaime Zehner. Welcome to my Cottage by the Sea in Laguna Beach, California. So we are in the living room right now, and this is a space I really wanted to create a calm, serene area, a Nancy Meyers aesthetic, if you will, because I wanted to infuse a lot of color in different aspects of the house. So this is kind of the calmer area. So I have the seagrass and the white slip covers. I passed on a vintage tapestry in Europe a couple years ago, and I think about it all the time. So I try to bring tapestry-inspired pieces anywhere I can, so that's where these pillows are. The exterior of the home is also so green, and you'll see all of the windows kind of reflect that color. So I wanted to pull that in little areas. So that's where the green comes in. My grandfather was a woodworker when I was a little girl, so this is actually a piece he made and that we've had in storage for forever, and I'm so excited that I get to have this, like a little piece of him. A lot of what I draw for an inspiration in my designs and in my home I want it to evoke a feeling. So this is something that, I remember him, I know there's a history there, and I love it. And we do that a lot with our clients. So this is a piece of his that I get to hold on to, that I've just loaded up with all of my books and magazines and things that I reach for inspiration all the time. You'll also see in this house there's so much from my travels that I kind of pull in as little trinkets and memories. I actually just got back from England, and this is a piece I snagged in England. I love the colors, I love the seascape, and I loved the frame. So this gets to sit on my mantle right now. I cannot commit to hanging anything on the wall. As an interior designer, I think we're always looking and creating and visualizing things. So nothing is really on the walls in this house because I change things out so often. But this is a prime location. So this got this right now. So the fun thing about a 1926 house is there's not really AC and there's not heat. So in the winter time, this has original windows on the house, so it gets so cold in here. This is Riptide's dog bed. This is actually where I sit in the winter, and I'm next to the fireplace. This is on all the time in the winter, and I absolutely love it. It creates such a cozy feeling, and it's my favorite part of the house. Actually, I'm gonna say that about everything in the house, but this is definitely a favorite. This house was a different color when I bought it. I repainted a little bit just so it felt a little bit more me. So I loved that this house had built-ins and trim and moldings and casings that a lot of homes don't. And so I wanted that to all be contrasting. So I painted this to be a little bit more neutral, and I got a place to showcase all of my books. Again, I'm always reaching for collections and inspiration, and I go through these on an annual basis. But this is kind of where everything lives and I grab for. This is actually the book I had when I was a little girl. This is the book that Riptide is named after. I always knew I would have a golden retriever that I would name Riptide, and so this is where the name came from. And I actually try to find, that book is out of print, but I try to find that and give it to friends who are having kids because it's just like a special memory for me. So this looks like a blank space right now. Again, as a designer, I can visualize what will go here. I have a custom mirror in my head that I can't quite afford yet, but that's what's gonna live on this wall one day, flanked with two shell sconces from England. But again, that's what I know will live there, and I won't commit to hanging anything until I can do that. But again, it kind of just creates this peaceful area for now. So this little area kind of came to be. I found this table at an estate sale, which is where a lot of the pieces I find come from estate sales, Facebook Marketplace, online vendors that I'll have shipped from places, but I loved the big size. We used it in a client's house. I really thought she'd keep it, but I'm so happy she didn't. So this is kind of where this lives, and then just again, I have my little trinkets, my shells, which are kind of dotted all throughout the house. I have this is from Breakfast at Tiffany's, one of my favorite movies. And then this lampshade is actually, I found at the bottom of a shop in Florence, Italy. It was 10 euros and it was a lot more to ship home, but I thought it was one of the coolest pieces I'd ever seen and so beautiful. And so I snagged it. Everybody said it was the best find of the trip, and it lives here now, and it gets to bring that character and charm and color and warmth into this space. So everything, again, I move things around all the time just kind of based on colors. I'll put different florals here and then kind of mix and match things so it looks good. I think that's just the designer in me. Everything's kind of moving around. And then again, the slip covers, just so that everything is kind of cohesive. I think in my head, I want to recover everything all the time, but I kind of love how peaceful this room feels right now. I am by no means a smoker, but I love to keep kind of quirky pieces, again, that just kind of feel unique. My grandpa made these and they were in storage for forever, and I just couldn't part with them. And I think they're just such a fun, unique feature. And I just, again, love that they come from my grandpa, and that they're a memory, and that they're just kind of these fun little things, a conversation starter, if you will. So the windows, these are all original windows for the most part, and this is my AC. So they're always open like this. Definitely in the spring, it's getting a little bit warmer today. We kind of have that May gray, June gloom, but they're always open. The Dutch door is always open, and I love listening to the birds. If you could smell right now the fragrance coming from outside and just hear the birds chirping, this is the best time of year for the garden. So I love listening to that from my couch. So when I first found this house, I immediately fell in love because it's a cute old cottage and it has a yard, which were two things I was looking for that I did not think I would actually find in this part of Laguna Beach. And so this was a dream in itself. The people who lived here previously had done a meticulous job of taking care of it. So when I first walked in, I said I wasn't going to change a thing, which is a lie as an interior designer, but I really tried to keep it true to the house. So of course the windows were kind of the thing that drew me in. There's so much natural light, which is a huge thing for me. But I'll be very honest, when I walked up into the house, the first thing I noticed was the original doorbell, which is this sweet little, and I just thought that was the cutest thing. And I always say that was the thing that got me, but truthfully everything in this house had me. But that was kind of the first thing that I fell in love with. I tell people all the time to use that instead of the ring. I have the ring for security purposes, but we love to hear this doorbell. I spend most of my time in here. In the winter, again, I'm next to the fireplace, but I have a lot of friends who come over, and in the cooler months, we stay in here. The rest of the time we're outside, but this is kind of where I work from this sofa sometimes. I work from home, so I think I work in every single room, but I work from here. I like to watch TV. I cuddle up with Riptide on the sofa. I entertain on here, and I think it's just kind of the bigger room that everybody can fit in. It's not the biggest space, but it's also something that people are sitting on the floor or drinking wine or playing games. So it's been really fun to kind of see this room evolve. This is the room that I've kind of spent the most energy in redesigning. When I first found the house, I wanted to do wallpaper in this room, but because the living room was going to be so clean, I wanted a nice transition. So what I opted for was a custom mural, because the light that hits this room in the summertime, actually at this time of year, in the afternoon is so beautiful. I didn't want it to be taken away from with a busy wallpaper. So I had the mural commissioned by an amazing artist in LA, and it's all based on the things that you see outside. I have some yellow roses, which yellow is my favorite color, and there's kind of little trickles of yellow throughout the house. There are seashells, which is a big thing. It's part of my brand. It's part of just who I am and being close to the water. We have lavender, which is planted outside. We have oranges, which are reflective of the orange tree outside. I also had him draw the little birds because I became obsessed with feeding the birds outside, the little bumblebees. So all of that is kind of sprinkled into this room. And I had it done in the colors that, again, reflected the outside that I was most attracted to. So you see the oranges and the yellows and the greens. What I always say is I like a muddied down version of those colors, and so I thought he did a beautiful job capturing all of that. We also have the Mattia poppies, which are one of my favorite flowers, and that's kind of everywhere. And I just love that it's imperfect. It's not perfectly symmetrical, and it just feels a little bit, it just feels like me. And so again, it's reflective of all of the exterior and the things that we can pull from the outside in, so it kind of feels seamless. So this we call Jaime's gin joint. I am a martini drinker, and that's pretty much it. So most of this is actually filled with different types of gin. If my friends come over and they want something else, they pretty much know to bring that. But I love that we call this Jaime's gin joint, and it just, you know, is again a collection of things that I have found that I love. So we have things from, this little vase is from Provence. These were collected on travels, and then, you know, just different little trinkets, but there's little bar accoutrements as well that are just kind of found at different estate sales. But this is kind of where the fun times happen, is everybody starts here and then we end up in the living room. This piece I found, I knew exactly what I wanted, which I think is really hard because that's always something you're looking for. But I knew I needed storage in this area. I knew I wanted this space to be my bar. And I actually found this piece in Atlanta that literally fit side to side perfectly. And I found somebody who would ship it for really cheap. But this piece is like perfect for here. Everything can be stored securely in here. And we grab for it all the time. I would say every Friday at 5 is where happy hour happens. And so that's Jaime's gin joint. So the table I actually found at Round Top, and that was one of the first pieces I bought because I didn't have a table for this space and it fit perfectly. And I love kind of the vintage feel of it. I love the wood grain in it. And then these chairs I actually found at a sidewalk sale. I got 4 for $100. And what I did was I recovered them in this kind of slip-covered scallop with a pattern cushion, which I love to do. I kind of love finding different pieces and utilizing it to make it my own. So, and I have people who have tried to buy these off of me, and I always want to change things, but I really am attached to these chairs. So for now, they'll stay here. But they're very comfortable and they're very cute, and they just kind of pull this space together. I'd like to say that my favorite colors are a muddied down version of green, blue, and yellow. And so I got all of that in this fabric. This is kind of, when you look at it, this room was all white a couple of months ago. I really knew I wanted the mural, so I painted it. And what I did was I painted the built-in, which is original. I painted it a green so that it made everything pop. When it was white, everything kind of got lost in it. So when I painted it green, you could just see some of my collected cups and mugs and patterns popped a little bit more. This chandelier popped, and I love how it kind of incorporates like a dainty floral look without being too floral, and just made this whole room kind of come together. I have every intention of painting these shades. Kind of, again, I like to make things my own. I don't want it to look like it's store-bought. That's a big part of what we're trying to do at Jay-Z Interiors, and so maybe this summer I will paint those and you'll see how they look. So I love to host. I would say, again, this is kind of where we host in the winter, and it's kind of smaller and more intimate. In the summer, you'll see the outside is so beautiful that we love to host out there. This is a lot of lunches. I have a couple of clients where I'll actually pull everything out here and we'll have client meetings here, just because it's so pretty. But this is definitely a more intimate just because of the tiny space. But the kitchen is so close by that it makes it really, really easy. I also love to do just a lot of charcuterie here and wine. And again, if anybody wants a martini, this is kind of where we do it before maybe we go walk down to town or something. I don't actually start out thinking I want a lot of antiques. I think that's just how I am because I like the patina of it, and I also like the quality of things. For me, I went through several iterations of how this room would look before I landed on this, and I think once I found the mural artist and saw his work and kind of what we could create together, everything kind of started coming together. From the colors, and again, when the light hits this room in the afternoon, it's so pretty, which kind of goes back to that mirror that I want in my living room, is I want it to be reflective of that. It's a tiny space, so I didn't want it to feel too overdone, which I have a tendency to do just because I like different things and trinkets. This is the cleanest I've actually seen this space. So I cleaned up for you guys, and that's kind of why it looks so beautiful. But this was the intent, to kind of pull everything in and make it feel cozy. I think that's kind of the word I would use to describe my aesthetic and our designs, is just kind of to make it feel something instead of store-bought. So the built-ins was kind of fun because once we painted it, like I said, everything got to pop against that green. So I collect a couple of I love to collect vintage glassware. These are actually, my mom got me these for my 21st birthday. They're 1950s shot glasses with the seahorses on them, which are just darling, and they've made it this far. There's other things in here that I love to showcase, is just vintage glassware. I joke that this is my hostess cup when friends come over. So there's just different pieces that make it pop and that feel unique. These are actually from the Ivy. I get a different, I get 1 to 2 pieces for my birthday every year, which is really special. And I love that they finally kind of stand out against something. And then just, again, I move things around for what feels right. We host with these all the time. Different antique pieces, different artwork that kind of evokes that feeling of a memory. When I moved into this house, there was actually no hardware on any of this, which was so funny to me. But I found these pieces that sat in a box for about a year. They're from England, they're Devol, and they just made the whole space feel so much cuter and pulled together, and I just love the way they look, and they've aged over time. I'm gonna take us into the kitchen now. For a small kitchen, this actually has so much storage, which is huge. Again, small house, it works really well. The people who lived here before me, the husband was a chef, and so everything was kind of made from what he experienced that would help him have the best cooking experience. So this butcher block, which I love, I would never have thought that for myself, and it's now my favorite countertop. And then what I thought was really cute, I originally hated this chair here, but the wife was a martini gal, and so she would sit here and drink martinis while her husband cooked for her, and I loved that. And then, to be completely honest with you, I drink my coffee here every morning, I read here, I sometimes work from here. That chair that I didn't like at first has become my favorite spot in the house. So I do cook a lot. I love to host, and I love to try new recipes. I actually just tried something the other day that did not do very well, but I think that's part of learning. And then I bake a lot too. So this is kind of the perfect kitchen to learn from that, and especially that a chef was here. It's so nice to have the storage all panned out so that I'm able to do that. I have a beautiful orange tree in the backyard that really produced well this year, so I make orange juice fresh every day, which is such a dream, and I'm so grateful to be able to do that. But that's something that this is utilized every single morning, and then sometimes when friends come over. A lot of the time when I make food and it's just myself, I will eat at this little table here, this sweet little bistro table. There's actually a tiny TV that they put in the cupboard here. So I always thought having a TV in the kitchen was such a luxury, and I absolutely love having that little TV here. I will show you right now. But sometimes I just hole up back here, and I just think it's the sweetest little thing. And then the other thing that they were so great about with storage in here, my washer and dryer is in here, which is just, again, you wouldn't know it's there. Sometimes I really do wish I had a laundry room, but for a tiny space, they did a great job with storage. So I found this rug in Round Top, and I just fell in love with the color. I actually bought it before I even lived in this house. I guess sometimes we do that too. We hold on to things hoping that it works for ourselves or a client. And so I loved the green and florals in here. In my mind, I still think it's a little bit too big for this space, but because I'm cooking and walking here all the time, it's perfect. And then I have this rug here that's just kind of, everything is layered. And again, this kind of goes back to the greens and the blues and the yellows. I just kind of love how it livens up the space and makes it feel a little bit warmer. The pendants were actually here when I moved in, along with the window coverings, which I know are so beautiful, but again, as somebody who wants to make it my own, what I would love to do is do like some beautiful cafe curtains in here I have the fabric. It's like a sheer diamond pane, crisp white, and eventually I would love to paint this kitchen yellow, so that would kind of play off of that. And then for the lights, I really wanted to do something that's kind of like a curtain color that just drapes down, that feels a little bit bistro and just a little bit homier. But I get more compliments on these lights than you would even believe, and they're not my favorite, but they work here. So again, just kind of going on things that I find, I knew I wanted a little hat rack here and to hold all my things. So I found this piece in France. I also found this at the French flea market, and then had it framed in this beautiful frame. And I love, again, those colors. I love that it kind of gets to live here, and it's connected to a memory. I think a lot of my artwork speaks to that, is just kind of connected to a memory or a place, and so I love bringing that into my home. Now we're gonna go to my office. Now we are in my office, and I'm gonna be very honest with you, this is the cleanest I have ever seen my office. It's a tiny place. I love working from home. I think it spills out into every room, but for now I know I kind of love being here. So the office was something I originally brought my old desk table or my old desk, and it was so massive for this room, and I ended up finding this piece that was smaller and had a lot more storage, and I absolutely love this desk. It's so beautiful and it's perfect. I just hosted a retreat with a friend of mine in England and couldn't bring myself to get rid of the garland yet, so that's why this is up here on my hat wall. But this is kind of where I work. This is where everything happens, unless I'm on my sofa or unless I'm at the dining room table. But I actually have a 4-foot monitor that is so ugly, but it helps me be super productive, that I've hidden for you guys today. And this is kind of where I work. And I have 2 people who I work with who are virtual, who live in different places. So it's great to kind of have my space here. This is a vintage hat and coat rack that I had seen. I found this from Chateau Sonoma, and she has it all over her house, and I just loved it so much, and I bought it, and it's great. When I moved into this house, this was the only wall that it fit on, because the walls are really small here. And I kind of love that it turned out this way. I have light skin and light eyes, so the sun is not my friend, but I'm always outside being so close to the beach. I love being in the water. I love being in the garden, so I need some sort of hat. So this is kind of where the hat wall came about. I got this one last year in Telluride at a bluesgrass festival, where I got to make my own cowgirl hat, which is very fun. But I reach for these all the time, and I'm always using them. I travel with them, and they've stood the test of time. So that's where the hat wall came from, and it just fits on this wall. So this is where I house all of my samples. That's the hardest part about a designer who works from home, is there's so many pieces that I gravitate towards, and then I'm always changing out to give clients the best options, but this is kind of where my favorites have landed. So this is something I always start here when we start working on a project, and then I'll gravitate towards other things. We'll pull in other pieces of inspiration, and whether it's tile or marble, but this is kind of where I start when any project is started, is with what I have and what I love. I also do something really funny with fabrics. My favorite fabrics stay on the wall until I can use them. They live here. This is my next one that I'm really trying to use, and I think I will end up using it. But it's just kind of something that every time a project gets started, as soon as we go through kind of what the client wants, I'll say, oh, I know exactly what fabric we can use in here. And that's kind of where I say my favorites live up on these walls. I have 2 areas where I kind of have my favorites, and that's what I gravitate to. But then this is where all of everything is housed, and it's mostly me who reaches in here, which is why it's clean and organized now. But I would say I clean up every Sunday, and by Friday afternoon, samples have spilled out throughout the house. So I'm constantly changing things up. For our designs, I think there's a couple components that we do really well. I call them our design styles, but what I like to do is layer those. So my favorite aesthetic is kind of that English cottage inspired with the Nancy Meyers aesthetic, and we layer those to kind of create something homey and cozy and textural, and I love patterns, and I love color. So implementing all of that together really cohesively. But we do things too where, you know, I love the Spanish Revival, and being in Southern California, you see so many beautiful Spanish style homes. So we'll kind of say, oh, we'll layer that with a Nancy Meyers aesthetic, or we can layer that with a little bit of a modern aesthetic, and all of that kind of blends. So what I really love to say about us is we have maybe 5 to 6 styles we do really well, but we layer them so it doesn't feel mass-produced. One of the most special pieces in my house is actually this Louis Vuitton trunk that I found when I was in college for about $100. I don't even know if it's real, but the thing about it is I'm a big handwritten letter gal. My grandma used to write me the most beautiful letters all the time, and as we got older, my brother and I realized those weren't gonna come around as much. So I became such a handwritten card gal, and anybody who sends me a card or a letter, I keep it and it lives in here. So this is actually full, again, tying that to a memory. This actually houses things my nephews have drawn me, letters from friends and family, which I just think is really fun and special. And if you're ever having a bad day, let me tell you, I will open this up and go through it, and it's just filled with love. So this is a really special piece to me. One of the other best things about working from home in this space is the natural light, and that it leads straight into the backyard. So I'm gonna take you out there now. So the backyard is what I think is the best part of the house. And being that this is my office in the summertime, I do work here all the time. This is a big part of where we host. We have 3 tables out here that I can host at. This is where we spend most of the time with friends and family. And then you can just kind of see the garden is going off right now, being springtime. So I'll show you around. So the previous owners for this house, they originally lived in Chicago, and they were moving back to Chicago. So the first thing I asked was, what are you gonna do with all your exterior furniture? Because it's great, and they ended up giving it to me, which is such a dream because the space is so beautiful and so huge. But I was able to incorporate all of this. I inherited all of this with the house, which has just made hosting such a dream. This table is my favorite part. It's kind of this vintage antique piece, solid oak, so it gets protected in the winter, but it's really fun to host dinner parties out here on this table. We have the whole setup back here with the barbecue and my gardening tools. So this is kind of where all the cooking happens. We set up out here. Food is usually splayed across this, or I try my hand at gardening on this table. So it's been super functional and super fun to use, and I'm just so lucky. So I would say I'm a gardening novice, but it was always something I wanted to do. I just didn't have the space for it. So when I came here, they had done such a beautiful job with the yard that I knew I needed to keep it alive. And it was really fun to try something different. And I think there's something to be said about trying new things and seeing what doesn't work. So I actually have an herb garden I'll show you in a minute. And then I loved being able to kind of plant things I love. So I love the pops of color. I love right now the little spray roses in the front that come up to life. There's lavender, so we have morning glory. I have the hydrangeas, which are coming back around too. It's been kind of fun to learn that. All of my grandparents were in the garden all the time. So one of my grandfathers had tomatoes, and it has made all of us tomato snobs. So I'm really trying hard to make sure I can do tomatoes this year, because it didn't work for me last year. And then my grandmother, June, had such beautiful hydrangeas and roses. And so that's something that's kind of been fun, and kind of a, again, a memory that I get to kind of bring to life and watch it happen. And then anything that doesn't work, I'm like, okay, why? What did I do wrong, and what do I do next time? So it's kind of been this learn as you go sort of thing. But this year is kind of fun because so much of it survived, and I'm so proud and so excited. But any Saturday afternoon, I'm usually out back here making sure everything is taken care of. These are my tomatoes that are starting to come in. These are black beauties, and I'm so excited to see them popping up. And then this is my herb garden, which is starting to really take off. It has been so much fun to just come back here and grab things from the garden as I cook and as I host, and again, try my hand at different things. So we have a ton of stuff back here. My zucchini was doing really well, and then I think was overzealous and it's not doing so great right now. But I come back here, I'm doing fresh salads every day for lunch. And again, kind of going on what works and what doesn't. I realized last week that the crows were eating all of my dill, which I put in my salads every day, and I was so upset. So now I have this little owl guy to scare them off, and it has worked. And the dill is starting to slowly grow back. So it's all about trial and error with this. So we're about 2.5 blocks away from the ocean, which is another dream in and of itself. So right now we have kind of this May gray, June gloom, where everything's really gray. This was a really great year for rain, so everything is thriving. But that's kind of what helps everything grow. Where I used to live, everything was in like a raised garden bed, but it would get beat by summer heat. And so because we're by the water and you get that ocean breeze, it's been really fun and a lot easier to keep things alive. The other thing, I have this lemon tree which is taking off, which I love to be able to grab lemons from for everything. And then the roses are really starting to bloom. I love just all of the colors. I think sometimes people around this area really just want one color for aesthetics, and I just love all the color infused in different areas. And then the best part is this orange tree, which really produced this year. And we have the last bits of it right now, but that's where I make the fresh orange juice every morning. It's from these oranges, and I do orange olive oil cakes all the time for family and friends. So this is kind of the guest bathroom, but the previous owners did such a great job. I'll show you this little feature for storage that we've actually incorporated into 2 different projects. But they put these little medicine cabinets on the back of the door, and it's so smart for storage purposes that we're using that for our own projects. These are not original. The bathroom has been a little bit redone. I have my own idea of how I want to redo it one day, but what I loved is just how classic it is. This looks like an old, everybody thinks it's the original flooring. It's not, but it looks like it is. And I think that's what I want for this house, is for everything to feel organic and feel like it's part of the old house. And now I'm going to take you into my bedroom. So this room obviously reflects a lot of the green from outside, which is such a dream. Having those windows, again, the open windows, I get to hear the birds. I actually wanted a water feature for the front of this, but my neighbors have one, so I get to listen to their water feature for free, and it's so wonderful. But I wanted a kind of calm space in here, and so I incorporated little pops of green, the stripes, kind of this floral. This was a chair that was already here. I just had it recovered kind of so it felt more me. I mean, it's so peaceful when you're here and you get to look out to this. It's a dream come true. This was actually my aunt's dresser, and I love how it fits this space so perfectly. When I got it, I didn't actually have space for it at the time, and I held on to it because I knew it was just so beautiful. And so I'm so lucky that I get to use this and have something pretty to look at all the time. This is another pressed floral that I found in France. I bought this with every intent to sell it to a client and ultimately couldn't part with it. Still cannot commit to hanging it on a wall. I don't know if I want it to live here or if I want it to live above the bed. I move it around a little bit as everything, but I just love how patinaed it looks and weathered, and I just love it. So one of the things, especially in this house, but I always kind of want to reflect in projects, is bringing the outside in. I'm very intentional with that in designs for my clients, and especially for myself in this room. Because there's so much greenery outside, because there's so many florals, I wanted that to feel the same in here without feeling like I was outside, or without feeling like it was competing with the outside. So I brought in this beautiful fabric and kind of incorporated that in. It reflects all of the greens outside. There's so many variants of green outside that I love that I get to bring it in a little bit. And then I was due for some new bedding and found this piece at a local shop and absolutely love how it turned out. Of course, I have to add a pop of yellow to everything, so that's where this came in. But again, I kind of think that mesh of pattern and that mesh of the mix of florals, kind of with that easy linen, kind of makes that like easygoing, kind of like that California feel meets an English cottage. It all feels very layered and just kind of cute and quintessential cottagey. As I mentioned, I just got back from England. A friend of mine and I hosted a retreat out there, and one of the things we got to do was host a workshop with Tess Newell, who I've been a long time fan of, so it was a dream come true, and we actually painted these lampshades with her. So I just got mine a couple of days ago, and I'm so excited about it. I think it pulls in the greens and yellows with a pop of pink perfectly, and it's just kind of, again, tied to a memory, something custom, something that I got to do, and it just kind of, it feels unique, and it's one of my favorite pieces in the house, but I'm gonna say that about everything. So when I moved into this house and I eventually painted it, I was really intentional on the paint color. So I wanted kind of a warmer white with that contrasting trim, because we don't have casings like this anymore. And this is the original hardware and the hinges as well, so I really wanted it to pop. Everything was all white in here, which looked beautiful, but I wanted it to kind of feel a little bit more elevated. And so I chose this kind of bone color, which has a green undertone, which is reflective of the green outside. But now everything gets to pop, and I get more compliments, and people notice the hardware more than they did before. So this is the front porch, which is darling. I also like to call it Riptide's territory, because he cries every night about 5:30 to come out and just watch the world go by, which is kind of a great reminder to stop and slow down, and I'll sit out here and I'll work a little bit, but you get to watch the world go by from the front door. So the house was originally kind of this pale yellow color, which is my favorite color, but I wanted it to feel a little bit more elevated. So I found this beautiful creamy white that would pop against the greenery. Again, there's so much green here. I wanted it to stand out, and then I brought in kind of a muddied down green for the trim, and I'm so happy with how it turned out. And then I kind of added different brass features, different places. So these were kind of the first thing I knew I wanted when I painted everything. They're also from England, and I just think they fit this space super well. And then the other thing that is really fun is this mailbox feature was actually part of the house, but it was just like kind of an open slot. And I found this lettere sign in Rome, and I bought it, and it literally fits perfectly. So I had that installed, and nobody actually gives me mail through this anymore, but I love that it's here, and it just kind of pops against the colors. So we come out here, I think, again, in the summertime, everything is so much more fun, and I love being outdoors. So I'm out here all the time with friends. We'll do a glass of wine out here, and just kind of sit, and the sun sets really beautifully here, and it's so cozy and warm. The swing is also a huge feature. People love to sit on that. We don't have enough swings outside, so that's been a really fun feature. So I actually had the house painted a couple of months ago at the end of summer. I did James White by Farrow and Ball on the exterior of the home, and then Embassy Green by Benjamin Moore on the trim of the house. And what's really fun is this was not a custom door, but the green matches perfectly for this screen, which is really great for all of the bugs that I don't want to get into my house. I wish you guys could smell what this place looks or smells like right now, because everything is so fragrant. The jasmine is coming in right here. I have hydrangeas that are starting to pop up, they just look so great. Normally, this is my favorite rose bush. It has the most fragrant yellow roses, which is kind of what we brought into the dining room as that inspiration. They're just budding right now, but everything smells so good out here, and it's the best part of this time of year. I think a home should be reflective of the people who live in it, and a collection of things that they love, and again, a memory. I think we want a collection of memories so we feel something, and we're not just coming home to something that's perfectly styled and void of any character. That's something that I feel so much in my home, and that I really try to encourage our clients to do in their own homes. This is a home full of hosting, so full of friends, full of family, full of people who can just come and show up and sit on your couch in their sweatpants, or people you're hosting dinner parties with. I think it's just something, you want it to be this happy space, and that's something I've really tried to encapsulate in this house.
Thanks for watching. Go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content and shopping guides.